Hello, my name is Okasa and I'm a constant stream of consciousness, and today we'll be discussing self-idolization, narcissism, and a cultural pattern that I am becoming concerned about. Before we begin, I just want to establish that narcissism is a personality trait that we all have, and it is a spectrum. On the more positive side of the spectrum is self-preservation, self-confidence, like setting boundaries for self. And then on the more negative, more unhealthy side of the spectrum is where we get the narcissistic personality disorder, NPD, where someone will disregard someone's humanity, be entitled to other people's time for themselves. And these are not like the same thing. So pretty much like narcissism is a trait that we all have. We're supposed to balance the concept of self with concept of community, right? And I just wanted to establish that first because I am going to be talking about narcissism because we're all technically narcissists, but I'm not using the NPD definition because that is something that you have to get a psychologist or psychiatrist to diagnose you with, and I'm not that. The inspiration for this video is a post by Lani that I actually have not finished yet because I told myself I was gonna go back and take notes, and then I never went back and took notes, but I will do it. I promise you I will. And she was pretty much talking about how we, Gen Z, are normalizing loser behavior, and everything that she was talking about, I was like, oh, like this is narcissism, or this is self, like this is asserting self over community consistently, and not taking the care to balance showing up for community, but also showing up for self. We are all like self, me, instead of also being able to balance proper behaviors amongst each other. And this connects to a video that I did about how I perceive God, which how I perceive God is more so the interaction between people. I see God as community. When you ask God for something and then it gets answered through another person, that is God moving, that is God, that is literally God. But also, I'm still on the fence if I believe God is like an actual genuine spirit outside of the concept of you and I. And this connects to something that my mom was talking about when I brought up, I don't know why I did that because I know she's queerphobic, but we were talking about how the looks maxers, like these incels, the current version of it where they're like taking meth and they're on peptides and they're working out and they're trying to look desirable it literally is gay culture, but now it's breached into cis heteronormative male spaces. And it's like a very interesting thing. And again, because a lot of her opinion will be rooted in homophobia, will be rooted in transphobia. But something that she did say that I was like, I do have to reflect on this because I don't have to agree with everything, but my mom has gens, okay? Like she's very spiritually in tuned. We are not on the same page on everything, but she is my spiritual leader for a reason. I was put under her protection for a reason. Me and my mom, we be talking sometimes. She said that it's idol worship. It's self-idol worship. Like exalting yourself over God, which I just said, this is a situation where we're trying to balance our natural inclination and our natural need to be narcissistic every once in a while, and balancing that with showing up for community. And I just said how I perceive God is community, how my mom is perceiving all this like looks maxer, incel like culture as like self-idolization, trying to exert yourself over God, trying to make yourself more what exactly did she say? When you start thinking that you know more than God, or like you start define pretty, because it's transphobic, right? It's like when you think that you can redefine what God has already said for you. And I'm like, okay, like I'm hearing not that part, but more so the part of like asserting yourself over community, asserting dominance or asserting importance over community. That's what I'm registering. It's more so the concept of self-idolization, which reminds me of one thing that Kanye said, which is crazy. I'm going to be quoting, like Kanye is someone that I will consistently think about because I allegedly have the same personality trait as him. And sometimes I get scared that if I ever get too big for my britches, I could end up destroying my life, which has to do with like this whole star motif, sun motif when it comes to narcissism. Oh, I didn't talk about narcissism. No, I'll get to it. Narcissism has connections to star motifs, like the sun specifically, sun motifs, and how the sun astrologically is supposed to be self, how you perceive self, how you come out, or like how you present yourself to the public self, and how the sun at the end of its life will either explode or implode. So every time I see like people who have a certain idea of self and it's like getting bigger and bigger and bigger and grander, and it's like it's like falling apart with its gravitational core, like they're not grounded, if that makes sense. Like they don't have a good form of good gravity about them. They either explode and everything in their life falls apart or it implodes. And I'm pretty much saying that that's what's happening with our culture just a bit, where it's like we're just so self-absorbed. We're absorbing and absorbing and absorbing, and it's messing with the gravity, it's messing with the balance of also community, that it's like this is not sustainable. Something is very off with our culture. Anyways, I said this to say that Kanye, in one it was probably a manic episode, but it wasn't one of the worst ones. It was when he was like, I am a god. Who does he think he is? I just told you who I thought I was. I just told you. I'm a god, which it has to do with like the self-idolization. But specifically, there's a Bible verse, Psalms 82, 6-7. And then it also connects to John 10:34, which establishes that because we are sons or daughters of God, we are gods, which has to do with like this whole concept. It's nepotism. And I had actually I should work on that one too. I have a video about nepotism that I can do right now that has to do with Jesus's persona. I need to like record it. Who your parents are does establish who you will become. I think often of nepotism, but also just like the tax bracket that your parents are, the money that your parents have, the knowledge that they have that they can share with you will establish who you are. Like, think of it like this way. If your parents are a lawyer, you don't have to become a lawyer. But the fact that your parents are a lawyer means that y'all are in a certain tax bracket, meaning that you're in certain schools, meaning you're in certain communities, and that will establish who you are. Because just the same way how like you as a person participating in community establishes how the community will be, how the community is will also establish who you are. And this is what I mean, like the whole balance of it all. But yeah, us being sons and daughters of God establishes us as a form of God. Where it becomes a problem is where you start thinking that, because I see God as community, where you start thinking you're the most important part of community. And though this also connects to star motifs and how the sun's gravity literally holds the whole whole solar system together. So it is the most important, it is the most responsible. I think that's the point. The sun is the most responsible. If you are trying to establish yourself as the center, as like, if you're so egotistical about yourself, if you're so self-absorbed about yourself, and it's not even because you're not even taking into account the gravity of who you are and how you have to be responsible with that gravity, and also make sure not to just whip it and move it, and you're not recognizing that you're supposed to be responsible with that amount of gravity, then you don't deserve to be the center of the universe. And I think a lot of people aspire for celebrity. A lot of people aspire to be seen. They pursue pleasure for just self without understanding that that has to come with the balancing of community, with the responsibility of community. I see celebrities, politicians, and in fact, this is from it. Celebrities, politicians, religious leaders in general are like, they are gravitational centers in the community. And I think when we have celebrities that are doing harm, when we have politicians who are doing harm, when we have religious leaders who are doing harm, the community suffers so bad because they were literally the core. But I also want to like not negate this, but also like bring up the fact that the sun also needs its planets. Like, of course, the sun is the center, so everyone is going, like, it's feeding back from the sun when it comes to gravity, but like the sun also needs the planets. And I think if the sun didn't have a certain planet, all the equation for our solar system would be off and we would suffer for it. So like, we all need each other. We need community. We need those intricacies. Anyways, I have a theory about reincarnation that has to do with this, because another video that I was watching, I was like, oh, this is narcissism. Foreign Man or Foreign Fridays, one of those videos where he was talking about diarrhea of an incel, and how one of the clips that he showed was like, yeah, if we were dying out, wouldn't you want to solve it? Like, these men, they're acting erratic, or they're getting violent, or like they feel insecure, like they're put in a survival mindset because they feel like they're dying out. And in my mind, I was just like, hey, so like, you will never, this body, this version of you will never exist again. When you die, you will die. And I think this idea that your kids are supposed to be a direct legacy for you is a problem. And I was just talking about nepotism, but it is narcissist, comes from the Greek myth Narcissus, which is a story about self-cest, or like at least like self-absorption, or being so self-absorbed that it literally comes at your detriment. And because I just brought up sun motifs, yes, narcissism, the sun connects to it, but also at the end of a son's lifespan, it either explodes or it implodes. So it's like, oh yeah, if you do not take care of your health, if you don't know how to balance this thing and that thing and all the nuances of your life, you will self-destruct. So when I say like narcissism, that story is about self-cest. Self-cest is a hop, skip, and a jump away from incest. When I say our narcissism is inbreeding our culture, that's exactly what I'm trying to get to the point of. Where when I'm hearing someone complain about, well, if I don't have kids, like I'll die out, that's crazy, because you will die out. Your kids are not you. Your kids are gonna be another half of a person. And this is where it's like, this is my theory on reincarnation and why it tends to be ancestral, that your soul and the body that you're in has like a compatibility about it. But when this body is gone, this body is gone. And the only remnants of it will be your descendants, of course. So when it's trying to find a new compatible host to live in, it's going to look for something with the same configuration of you, right? But I also think it's vaguely romantic, like, oh yeah, this body is long and gone, but I'll find a new body that has this one genetic strand, or like this one little part of it that reminds me of a body that will never exist again. I think that's really cute. The thing is that I think a lot of people are just like, if it's not my direct descendant, that's not my descendant. And that's why I have Michael Jackson on my thumbnail, because Jafar Jackson is not Michael Jackson's direct descendant, is he? But notice how that boy, that his nephew is literally a great legacy. Like he is continuing his legacy very well without being a direct descendant. And he looks like him, except for the eyes, but he looks like him, and he is performing with reverence. And also the Jackson family is just, okay, right? The Jackson family, I have two things to say about the Jackson family. One, the Jackson family is the first family of music. Yes, they are a pantheon. They are a pantheon. Like how Hera, Zeus, Hades, Hestia, who's the other sister? Demeter, and Hades, did I say Hades? Neptune. That's not his Greek name. They are a pantheon. The Jackson family are a pantheon. Apparently every single one of them had a #1 song on Billboard. That is a pantheon. That is a pantheon, right? Jafar, the second thing that I wanted to say is when I found out that Jermaine married his brother's ex-wife or baby mama, whatever. So some of those kids are sister cousins. That's incest. No, you can't sleep with multiple people in a family. That's nasty. That's icky. That's nasty. That's icky. And I come from a culture where, yes, if your brother dies, you're supposed to marry his widow, because it's supposed to make sure that you'll take care of her. But that's just because we lived in a patriarchy, and you would not take care of that widow if you didn't have rituals like that to establish. Because again, y'all don't actually care about direct descendants, but I'm trying to bring up the fact that you don't need a direct descendant to come back, because I have cousins. If for whatever reason me and my siblings don't have kids, my dad has siblings that have had kids that will most likely, at the end of the day, someone's gonna have kids. And the same genetic code that is in my dad is in his siblings, and therefore in my cousins. So maybe the part of my DNA that my spirit is attached to isn't this one specifically, but something that is tied to my dad and therefore his kids and blah, blah, blah. Point being, this is what I said in The Grandma's the Baby. Like, how far back do you need to go for reincarnation? And this is why it's like a theory, and it's like a fun theory to think about, but then also why I understand why some people are like, and it doesn't have to be ancestral. You can get reincarnated anywhere, because we're technically all related. Point being that it's so narcissistic. It's literally narcissism. Like, narcissistic parents literally exist, and they make it weird. They make weird cultures in their own family because they're narcissists, where it's like, my kid needs to literally be a replica of me, or I can't love them. Or my kid needs to literally be my legacy, or I can't love them. See how it's like, it takes a village to raise a kid, takes community to raise a kid. And of course, yes, the primary support for the kid is going to be their parent, but how having your uncles and family friends instill into that child makes them socially diverse, culturally diverse, and it's not just the parents trying to make the kid their exact replica. Point being is just like, this is this is like, people are self-idolizing. People are like, I love the idea of branding. Like, I know myself very well. I know the motifs that really correlate with me, but I also like knowing who I am in context to my family, in context to my friends, in context to community. But I also have to take that back, because Lani was calling me out because I did ghost a friend recently because it got stressful. Like, the way I participate, and this is where I'm like the balance. Technically, I'm really good with participating in community. I do a lot of things that I don't technically want to do, because in the back of my mind, what I'm thinking is that's like not okay to do. Like, I'm not that antisocial. I'm actually very pro-social up until the point where I hit a wall, and then I have to hermit, right? And I mean, yes, like, it's normalizing antisocial behavior. Like, I understand that, but at the end of the day, I do show up for people even if I don't want to, often, up until like I overexert myself. And this is something that I'm currently like, I'm consistently thinking about. My main issue isn't actually even narcissism. It's actually being able to set boundaries so I don't burn myself out like the sun at the end of its lifespan, imploding. Yeah, I've thought about this a lot. But yeah, like, our culture is getting vaguely, weirdly inbred. Like, you're so obsessed with yourself that you can't see the continuing of yourself unless it's through your kids. That's a problem. Join a community center, start instilling in children that actually do need, like, you're not doing anything but complaining online. Go. And also, but you're probably a dangerous person, so you shouldn't be hanging out with kids. But it really is like, you're so weird. Like, you're not gonna die out. And I mean, if you do, then you do. Whatever. That's so, like, whatever. You're not gonna be, the version of you right now is never gonna exist again. So why are you obsessed with the concept of, I'm gonna die out, my genes are gonna die out? Your genes are somewhere else, I promise you they are. Far, far, far back, however long ago. Like, I'm not worried about that. And I think that's just so disingenuous, because this body, when it's gone, it's gone. There is no version of it. And if you try to convince yourself that your kid is a version of you, that's a problem, because it's only 50, if that. Right? It's only 50, if that. Yeah. There is something very weird happening in our culture where it's just like, I think it's also just because we're afraid of getting hurt, because our leaders, the people who were the center of our communities, have failed us. So it's like, we can't trust community. And that is a very valid thing to say. I sometimes want to know if there are any solar systems that have more than one sun legitimately, where the planets, like, and that's the thing. It's just like, I'm using the sun because at the end of the day, we do need leaders. We do need someone to be the face of something, to be the glue, the center to hold people together. But I think the problem is that we don't have reverence for the other planets. You know what I mean? Like, if we didn't have Jupiter, we would have issues. Like, there was a person on TikTok, and they were making jokes, of course. Like, that's just their brand of jokes. And they were calling Jupiter a whore. But technically, Jupiter's gravity is why we don't get pummeled. We don't get pummeled with as many asteroids as we do, or even the asteroids that are able to pass through Jupiter they incinerate before it gets to us because of Jupiter's gravity. Like, that is a protective force for us. So if we're only thinking about the sun and we never focus on all the other planetary bodies that are also participating in this solar system that is also benefiting us, that's a problem. So like, yes, highlight our leaders, of course, but let's highlight the people in the background that lift up. And this is just something, because I will say, like, I think it's funny that I put that into the universe. I released a video about envy, which is another video about gravity, for real, about how like emotions are gravitational. I see that video about we're normalizing loser behavior, and it's like, yeah, I did call myself a loser in that video. Like, I'm technically wallowing in self-pity or whatever just because I decided to burn myself out and I've imploded. And yeah, like, use that implosion as a death and rebirth. Like, this is not normal. Like, this is not normal. We gotta fix this. We gotta fix this. You're allowed to be narcissistic every once in a while, to have self-confidence, to have self-preservation, to have boundaries. But if it is coming at the expense of community health, that's gotta end. Like today, for the good of everybody, for the good of the future. You know, it cannot always just be about you. And I mean, I took I took a economy class and they were like, yeah, the best way to convince people to do something is if you can convince that it will benefit them. And I feel like because we don't often see directly how something benefits us, we disregard it. But again, like, you're not thinking about Jupiter keeping those asteroids away from you. Please, like, remember to revere every part of community, revere how every part of every person is a mirror of self. Anyways, thank you so much for watching. Please comment down below how you feel about my opinion about self-idolization, narcissism, and this cultural pattern that we're experiencing. Share with someone that you think would be interested in this topic, and also follow. I would love for you to follow, and I have a link tree down below. You should follow me on everything. Oh, bell notification. You should know when I post. I literally will post damn near every day if I'm not in a depressive episode. And technically, I think I might be manic, but I don't have a diagnosis. Okay, bye.